What my son discovered at a stranger's grave left me in shock. 3 amazing secrets revealed. Mark stood in the cemetery, the cold gray morning dulling the warm memories of his father. He tried to focus on the flowers he'd brought, but the stagnant air choked him with unspoken words, the weight of single fatherhood once again wrapping around his chest like a suffocating vine. Jake was wandering off, his youth tickling curiosity. Just a few days before, they had talked about values, honesty, hard work, family. But now they felt abstract, caught in the grip of living paycheck to paycheck, the shadows of unpaid bills looming over them like dark clouds. "Dad, look at this!" Jake shouted, excitement lacing his voice as he brushed away leaves from an unkempt grave marked with an unfamiliar surname. Mark's heart sank. The past was supposed to remain buried, but curiosity had a way of digging itself up. Unease settled in. How could something like this be unearthed? He watched his son, so eager, so naive, and a surge of anger bubbled beneath his skin. What if this discovery threatened the very integrity he was trying to instill? What if this led to complications he couldn't control? The sight of Jake's wide-eyed fascination ignited a flicker of hope. Perhaps this would help them find a way out of their struggles. But a shiver of dread coursed through his veins. Misplaced loyalties threatened everything he valued. "Dad?" Jake's voice was laced with confusion, the slip of paper in his hands. As the boy approached, Mark's heartbeat quickened. Inside his mind, he battled images of wealth that came at a price, secrets ripping through family legacies, the ghosts of scornful glances from neighbors. What if this was a path to something wrong? Before they continued, Mark recalled the local gossip. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Fingers trembling, Mark took the paper. The words, so innocuous at first, spoke of a family's tragic fall from grace, wrapped in tales of scandals long buried. The secrets murmured like ghosts in the wind, taunting him with possibilities. One part of him an impulse to flee from what this could mean, another eager to uncover the truth hidden beneath the soil. But as he looked at Jake, bright-eyed and smiling, the internal tug-of-war intensified. Should they pursue the truth, risking all they had built, or return to their modest but honest lives? Mark felt the pressure of unseen eyes in the town, judgment at the ready, whispering what was right or wrong. Power and wealth would come with a cost, their family's very name hanging in the balance. His racing thoughts tangled with a growing sense of desperation. "Dad, what if this means something? What if—" Jake's hope ignited, leaving Mark feeling the weight of all that was not said. An inherited legacy could reshape their lives, weaving dreams into reality. But at what cost? Would it mean betraying the past? Would they abandon the values Mark worked so hard to instill? Jake's excitement contrasted sharply with Mark's churning concerns. Their bond, so pristine, felt fragile under pressure. Just as doubts clawed at his mind, an old neighbor's voice broke through the haze. "Mark, do you know what you're getting into?" As the words settled, Mark's heart lurched. They were trapped. The story unfolding before them threatening to unravel everything he had ever believed about family and honor. With every beat, he could feel the thunderous storms of change gathering overhead. Mark stood frozen as whispers tangled around his mind, the neighbor's warning echoing in his ears like a haunting refrain. He cast a brief glance at Jake, who remained blissfully unaware of the gravity of what lay nestled within that crumpled paper. In his son's eyes there was a flicker of potential, a promise of something bigger than their limited lives. But for Mark, it was drowning in unease, suffocated by the fear of what discovery could unleash. He took a deep breath, grounding himself as he thought through the possibilities. Questions raced through his mind, pulling him in conflicting directions. The images of past hardships loomed large, and yet the potential for a brighter future dangled just out of reach. Could they catch a glimpse of sunlight, or would they only invite the storm? "Jake," he said, forcing a calmness into his voice. "We need to think carefully about what we do with this." His tone felt heavier than it should have, weighted by the burden of experience. "Why? Don't you want to find out what happened?" Jake's enthusiasm was palpable. In that moment, Mark saw a reflection of himself in his son, a youthful eagerness that used to drive him, a time when life was still filled with possibilities instead of constraints. "It's not that simple. Some things are best left alone." Mark hesitated, knowing full well how that sounded. It made him feel like he was stripping away the very curiosity he had once encouraged in Jake. Would he dampen his son's spirit by holding on to his own fears? But what if it can help us? "Dad, we've talked about changing our situation. What if this is the answer?" Jake pressed, his youthful conviction igniting a flicker of anger within Mark. It wasn't that easy. Change wouldn't just come tumbling out of the dirt beneath a gravestone. "Help us how? You think just because we dig up a family secret everything will be different? We could be inviting more chaos, more judgment." Each word sank deeper into his own mind, but a part of him understood. This wasn't just about Jake's curiosity. It was about the potential to rewrite their story. The tension between father and son thickened as Mark felt the conflicting desires choke him. The sudden weight of responsibility pressed uncomfortably against his chest. Should he shield Jake from discomfort, or guide him through the uncertainty of life's darker corners? "Please, Dad, just give it a chance." The determination in his son's eyes ignited something within Mark, causing his heart to race anew. Understanding dawned on him. Wasn't he standing at a pivotal moment in their lives? The choice he made here could not only change the direction of Jake's life, but could also breathe a new lesson into his own. It struck him that true growth often lay hidden behind discomfort, just as truths lay buried beneath the soil. With a newfound resolve igniting within him, Mark made a decision that felt both terrifying and empowering. "All right, let's explore this together. But we need to use caution. We'll move slowly and keep our values close." As he and Jake began discussing a plan, dread still clung to his thoughts, yet hope glimmered in the distance. But beneath the surface, an unsettling question swirled. What had this family been through that led to their grave staying unmarked? And worse, what if uncoupling their past entangled their future in ways that could shatter everything they had built? Mark felt the winds shift, drawing ominous clouds into place. The journey ahead was unraveled, and doubt lingered like an unwanted specter. As they wandered from the grave, Mark knew fate had set a path into motion. A path where discovery could either empower them or consume them. The unearthed truth towered above them like a mountain yet to be climbed. Would they emerge stronger, or risk losing every ground they had carefully tread? The time had come to face the silence buried beneath their feet. Mark awoke the following morning disoriented, the echoes of yesterday still reverberating inside his mind. He rolled over, careful not to disturb Jake, who was still asleep, sprawled comfortably on his bed. The boy's peaceful expression stirred a protective instinct in Mark, a force that had oftentimes dictated the decisions he made since the moment he first held Jake in his arms. This was a sacred duty, he thought, to secure a brighter future. Sitting up, Mark breathed in the aroma of coffee brewing downstairs. The comforting scent momentarily lessened the weight of his worries. Yet as he watched the sunlight stream through the window, illuminating the space with warmth, he couldn't escape the gnawing anxiety nestled in his gut. Today began their first steps into unknown territory. And with those steps came the reality that they might stumble over secrets better left buried. After they hastily finished breakfast, Mark and Jake stood at the door, each clutching a notebook and a pen, like weapons in a battle against ignorance. Jake bounced on his heels, filled with an eagerness that reminded Mark of his own youthful days. But the thought quickly shifted to the battle raging inside him. Was he doing the right thing? Was curiosity worth the unseen consequences? As they reached the plot where Jake had first discovered the gravestone, Mark's heart quickened, the shadows bearing down heavier than before. The morning sun glared down on them, illuminating the dirt that had concealed their family's history for so long. A reluctance to disturb what had lain undisturbed clawed at his resolve. "Dad?" Jake's voice drew him from his internal struggle. "We agreed to do this together." "Yes," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. His trepidation morphed into a fierce determination as he punctuated his words. "Let's just be careful. The closer we get to finding something significant, the more cautious we need to be." They began by observing the area, note-taking as if they were amateur archaeologists, sifting through hidden layers of time. Every stone, every tilting flower, echoed with echoes of lives long past. Mark felt torn between an urge to pull Jake away from the shadows of those who had come before, and an equal desire to unveil the truths obscured by silence. "Look here. There's something etched into this stone," Jake exclaimed, kneeling close to the ground, his fingers tracing the inscription with reverence. Mark moved beside him, the intrigue overshadowing his inhibitions momentarily. "Beloved daughter, we miss you," Jake read aloud. Each word dripped with sadness, forcing Mark to confront the fragile lives intermingling with their own. "What does that mean for us?" Jake turned towards Mark, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Was she part of our family?" Mark released a strained breath. They had entered the territory of his intruding fears, this ongoing journey exposing them to potential heartbreak. "I don't know," he admitted, the weight of uncertainty twisting deep within him. In that moment, he realized that they were not merely uncovering facts about the past. They were also exploring the very essence of their own identities. His fingers trembled as he reached for the notebook, channeling that urgency in a new revelation. Perhaps the only way for them to achieve the change they sought was through facing Anna, whoever she was, and understanding the impact her legacy had on their lives. But with every fragment of revelation, a shroud of apprehension settled over him. What dark truths could this connection unveil? What if their path led to a confrontation with shadows even darker than the secrets they were unearthing? As the day faded, they retraced their steps back home, a storm brewing in the distance. Jake's enthusiasm bubbled beneath the surface, but Mark couldn't shake the sense that with every discovery came a price. Something lay ahead, something that would push them to redefine not only their family's history, but their very understanding of what family meant. In that moment, Mark sensed that the universe had set its course. Bound by their decisions, they stood at the precipice of revelation. Their journey was just beginning, unfolding in ways they hadn't yet begun to imagine. Would they find empowerment in the unknown? Or was it the encroaching darkness waiting to consume them whole? The very thought ignited a primal urge in Mark, a desperate need to hold on to the light while delving deeper into the shadows. What more awaited them, just out of reach? Mark lay awake that night, traversing the endless corridors of his mind, illuminated only by the flickering light of the street lamp outside. Jake had long since drifted into deep slumber, the innocent sound of his breathing providing a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling within Mark. Memories of the gravestone and the haunting inscription had etched themselves into his thoughts, the weight of it all pressing down like a heavy shroud. He grappling with something more profound than mere curiosity. As a father, the significance of uncovering the truth behind Anna, or anyone connected to her, had begun to feel like an obligation, an undertaking that might shape both their futures. Would this delicate exploration reveal connections that could redefine their shared narrative or entangle them in unforeseen chaos? The following day dawned gray and foreboding, mirroring Mark's mood. He prepared for the exploration ahead with an intensity greater than he had anticipated. The storm clouds loomed large, but they fueled his determination. He felt as if fate was amplifying his quest for understanding. Knowledge was a journey, he reminded himself, one that would take them to destinations beyond mere facts and figures. Over breakfast, Mark observed Jake's eager disposition, a flicker of hope igniting within him. His son would extract joy even in the face of darkness, an ability Mark admired and envied in equal measure. Jake's enthusiasm stirred an unyielding resolve. He needed to balance his paternal instinct with the pursuit of truth. They were partners now, connected by their quest. "Ready for another day of discoveries?" Mark asked, attempting to suppress his unease. "I can't wait." Jake's eyes sparkled, a beacon of innocence that reassured Mark even as uncertainty simmered beneath the surface. As they approached the graveyard once more, Mark felt an unsettling shift in the air. The ground felt different beneath his feet, a tangible charge that seemed to permeate every fiber of his being. He led Jake with cautious strides, determined to remain anchored as they stood at the precipice of history waiting to be unearthed. "Why do you think people leave flowers?" Jake asked, glancing at a cluster blooming near the weathered stones. A simple inquiry, yet it sent tremors through Mark. He considered the implications of remembrance and loss, the complex emotions their discoveries might unearth. "Sometimes it's to honor the memories of those they've lost," Mark replied, more to himself than to Jake. "It's their way of keeping a connection alive." The weight of the statement hung heavily in the air, each word a reminder of life's fragility. As they began taking notes and sketching the layout of the plots, Mark's mind spiraled. What if they uncovered something that would irrevocably alter their understanding of one another? Hours seemed to pass like moments as Mark's fascination morphed into a driving force. Each cryptic etching and each careless stone spoke volumes. He felt increasingly entwined with the life Anna had led, a tapestry mysterious yet infinitely relatable. He glanced at Jake, who was momentarily distracted by a squirrel, and felt a warmth wash over him. This journey wasn't solely about understanding their lineage. It was also about teaching Jake resilience, persistence, and the importance of facing life's treacherous uncertainties head-on. They uncovered more names that hinted at a web interwoven with their own. Mark noted each connection with meticulous precision, realizing that every discovery felt like peeling back layers of a shared heritage long hidden. Increasingly, he found himself questioning everything he thought he understood about his family. A chill swept through as the wind picked up, a prelude to the impending storm. It felt like a portent of things to come. "Dad, over here!" Jake's voice cut through the air, electrifying Mark's senses. He turned to find Jake standing before a headstone, the letters stark against the crumbling gray. "Hannah," Mark hissed, the weight of recognition crashing upon him. There was an unsettling familiarity, a knot of emotion, tension, and fear. How had they stumbled upon this? As they approached closer, uncertainty wrapped its chilly fingers around Mark's heart. What did this revelation mean for their family? He met Jake's wide-eyed gaze, certain that their lives had just shifted with this one unexpected finding. Mark sensed that the answers they were about to unveil could either sever their bond or create an unbreakable link. What had Jake inadvertently uncovered at this stranger's grave? The question reverberated within him, stirring an inexplicable fear and excitement. Were they prepared for the tempest that would surely follow this discovery? The storm brewing in the distance paled in comparison to the impending confrontation with their sprawling family history. The inscription etched in cold stone lingered in his mind like a persistent echo. Mark felt the tremor of uncertainty rise within him as he scanned the grave, the absence of familiarity only amplifying his confusion. Anna. The name floated like a spectre, and yet it was tethered to something deeper, something only half-formed in his understanding. Why is it so special? Jake's innocent question gnawed at Mark's conscious effort to remain composed. The eagerness in his son's voice was the lifeline he clung to, grounding him in the face of this uncharted territory. "I'm not sure yet, buddy," Mark managed, forcing the words past the lump in his throat. His heartbeat quickened, racing through thoughts of how to even begin navigating this unexpected revelation. He pulled out his notebook, the familiar action providing an anchor in his spiraling emotions. The pages, now filled with sketches and observations, suddenly felt inadequate in capturing the enormity of what lay before him. There was an urgency, an unyielding pull urging him to connect the dots, to dig deeper, to know not just for himself, but for Jake, too. Understanding this single piece could redefine everything they thought they knew. "Let's take some pictures," Mark suggested, fighting to mask the dread that colored his voice. He looked at the grave's details through the lens of the camera, hoping the act might distance him from the emotional turmoil roiling within. But as he snapped the images, he was instead drawn closer to the enigmatic past. Was this really just a name? Or was it a doorway into the lives and struggles of those who had come before him? Each flash of the camera felt like a heartbeat quickening. What if Anna was more than an ancestor? What if her choices were interwoven with the very essence of who they were? Jake peered at him, curiosity replacing the initial excitement. The innocence faded slightly as Mark sensed the shift, a budding awareness that they had tapped into something stirred by legacy and loss. He needed to be careful. The last thing he wanted was to burden his son with the sometimes harsh and twisted paths of history. "Let's sit for a minute," Mark said, gesturing toward a nearby bench. He settled beside Jake, who still seemed entranced by the stone before them. Mark's mind raced, grappling with the questions forming in his head. What stories lay behind that name? What secrets had been hidden away from their family narrative? As Mark narrowed his focus, he felt an impulse igniting the need for research, for digging, truly digging, into the truth. His personal fear about the chaos it might unleash had morphed into a commitment. He realized that he was no longer merely chasing ghosts, but striving for something valuable and real. Understanding Anna meant understanding a part of himself, and giving Jake a richer narrative from which to draw lessons. "Jake," he said, determination setting his tone. "We're going to find out all we can about Anna. Her life, her story. This is important." Jake nodded, resolute but still wrapped in innocence. "And then we can tell the stories, right, Dad?" Mark swallowed, knowing the truth could unravel. Of that he was certain. "Yes, we'll share the stories." He had no idea how deep this rabbit hole would go, or how much it could potentially shatter their world as they knew it. Just as he felt a glimmer of clarity, a sudden clap of thunder pealed across the sky, interrupting any sense of safety. The looming storm mirrored the storm gathering in his heart. He glanced at the storm clouds swirling overhead, contemplating his next move. The world outside was unraveling, reflecting his internal chaos. What awaited them beyond the grave, in pursuit of Anna's truth? The revelation felt as imminent as the approaching storm. Would they emerge enriched, or would they face storms of an entirely different kind? Mark could almost hear the calling of secrets waiting to be uncovered. With Jake by his side, he steeled himself for the journey. The time had come to face the unknown. Mark's resolve solidified with a rumble in the distance. They needed to leave the graveyard, but he couldn't shake the weight of Anna's presence, or the pull of the unanswered questions. As they walked back to the car, he felt the ground beneath him shift. It was more than just the changes in the weather. It was a shift in his own understanding. With Jake strapped into his booster seat, Mark settled into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel as though it might offer clarity. He turned the ignition, and the engine roared to life, but his own thoughts felt muddled, echoing the chaos around him. What if Anna's story had been pushed aside for a reason? Who were they to disturb the dust of the past? He drove aimlessly for a moment, lost in contemplation. Jake's voice broke through, a bubble of innocence in the tempest of Mark's thoughts. "Dad, are we going to find out about Anna right now?" he asked eagerly, eyes wide with excitement. Mark shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Not right this second, buddy." Their lives had spun dangerously close to uncharted territory, and he hesitated at the brink. Was pursuing this knowledge worth the potential fallout? Could unraveling their family's history hold revelations that would change how they saw themselves? But then the image of Anna's stone, stark and unwavering, flickered back in his mind, reigniting the flame of curiosity. "We're going to start with some research. See what we can uncover." The thought of gathering information sent a shiver of determination through him. Arriving home, Mark dove into the digital abyss of the internet. Hours turned into late-night caffeine-fueled sessions, tapping into ancestry databases and local history archives. He jotted down notes, piecing together a tapestry of Anna's life. In fragments, they painted a picture of a woman who lived against the grain, a figure marked by resilience and struggle, something he vividly recognized within himself. But as he sifted through records, the surface began to scratch open deeper issues. Family secrets entangled in public records, whispers of illegitimacy, and a lineage threatened by scandal. Each discovery pricked at the edges of his mind, feeding a hunger for truth but simultaneously stoking a fear that this wasn't just a search for knowledge. It was a confrontation with his own lineage. "Dad, can I help?" Jake's small voice pulled him from his focus one evening. The boy had a curious glint in his eye, mirroring the very determination Mark felt. For a moment he pondered the implications of involving him in what felt less like a journey of discovery and more like a reckoning with the past. Yet he recognized the spark in Jake, the flame of curiosity that could forge his own identity. "Okay," Mark said, taking a deep breath as he pulled up records filled with old photographs and letters. "We'll look through this together." He felt a mix of relief and anxiety as the boy began to sift through the documents, pioneering a connection with a history that lay only a few generations away. Mark initially intended to shield Jake from possible heartache. However, witnessing his son's reactions, intrigue morphing into concern at uncovering potential family shame, made him realize that this wasn't just a history lesson. They were building a foundation for understanding themselves, bricks laid on the truths of those who came before them. But just as they began uncovering details about Anna's life, the unsettling revelation of familial betrayal came crashing in, evoking feelings of anger and confusion. What would this mean for their family's identity? As tension simmered between Mark's desire to protect Jake and the necessity of honest communication, the storm he had felt earlier began to brew within him again. He was at the edge of something monumental. The deeper they dug, the more conflict he could foresee. Would they emerge stronger, or forever changed by the shadows of their heritage? In that moment, the answering voicemail chime cut through the air. The abruptness jolted him. "Mark, we need to talk. It's about Anna." Every instinct told him he had just opened a can of worms larger than he anticipated. It was a call that could unravel everything he was trying to understand. With a deep breath, he picked up the phone. What truths awaited him on the other end? And how would they impact the story he was beginning to compose for himself and Jake? Mark's heart raced as he pressed the phone to his ear, thoughts of Anna flooding his mind like an unwelcome tide. This was the moment he had both anticipated and dreaded, an invitation to dive deeper into the murky waters of his ancestry. "Mark." The voice on the other end was familiar, yet it sent a shiver of unease down his spine. It was Claire, his estranged cousin. The hint of urgency in her tone echoed his unease. "I've been trying to reach you about Anna for days. You cannot imagine what I've learned. Claire, what's going on? Mark's voice betrayed his growing agitation, and his grip tightened involuntarily on the phone. Just the mention of Anna felt like a stone sinking in his gut. He held his breath, waiting for the revelation that might crack his reality wide open. I found some letters, she said, her words tumbling out in a rush. Letters that belong to her. They detail everything. Secrets about your family, things we were never supposed to know. Mark's throat tightened. Anna had carried the weight of her past for so long, and now he felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering over the void. What kind of secrets? He probed, heart pounding wildly against the confines of his chest. It's complicated. There's a connection to our great-grandfather that changes everything. He wasn't just a soldier. He had another family, Mark. Another life. Her words felt like an explosion, each one fragmenting his perception of who he was. A maelstrom of emotions swirled in Mark's mind. He had only just begun to piece together Anna's history, and now he was faced with the unsettling knowledge that there were layers of secrets that could redefine his entire existence. How do you know this? Because, Claire said. I saw the letters with my own eyes. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence is irrefutable. Your grandfather. He had a child before Anna's mom, and that child— Stop, he interrupted. The revelation was more than he could process. He felt trapped between the pull of familial loyalty and the urge to distance himself from this newfound chaos. I need time to think. What we uncover changes our narrative, Mark. Knowing it, embracing it, could empower you, Claire urged. But her voice fell on deaf ears as he stared at the wall, feeling the weight of generations crashing down on his shoulders. That evening, Mark found himself in deep introspection, pacing the living room as shadows flickered from the streetlights outside. He felt like a ship in a storm, tossed between the shores of past sins and the promise of understanding. The conversation with Claire haunted him, pushing him to consider the implications of what those secrets meant for him and Jake. Could he face the backlash of his ancestors' choices? Would Jake understand the complex tapestry of their lineage, or would the revelations drive a wedge between their present and the past? His son's innocent curiosity hung over him, a reminder that the pursuit of truth laid heavy with both responsibility and risk. In the quiet moments, Jake's voice, full of hope and excitement, echoed in his memory, tugging at him to forge a path forward. Mark felt the spark of an idea, a way to weave both deception and truth into a fabric that could sustain him. The idea coalesced into a plan, one that could either redeem his family's legacy or seal it in the dust of history. With the weight of Anna's unfinished tale pressing on him, Mark took a deep breath, centering himself for the journey ahead. He needed to confront not just the past, but how he would choose to shape his future. And Jake's. Just as he was ready to transform his revelations into action, he caught a glimpse of the letters in his mind, and a chilling question arose. What other truths lay buried, waiting to be uncovered? He was standing on the brink, and he sensed the change reaching out to him, ready to launch them both into the heart of a legacy primed for revelation. Would they be able to handle what lay ahead, or would each secret leave them shattered? Tomorrow, we're starting again, he whispered, steeling himself for what was to come. Little did he know, the true test was about to begin. As dawn broke the next day, Mark felt the weight of the sun's rays seeping through the kitchen window, illuminating the chaos in his mind. The letters had granted him a key to a door he never knew existed, yet the idea of stepping through filled him with dread. He forced himself to sit at the table, coffee steaming in front of him, but his mind was miles away, tangled in thoughts of ancestry and unraveling truths. How do you even begin to address what you've unearthed? He muttered to himself, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. The echoes of Claire's urgent voice resonated in his mind. Empowerment. That concept felt distant, buried beneath layers of confusion, anger, and fear. He was suddenly aware of the multiple layers of his identity, straddling the line between revelation and denial. Jake's laughter broke through this mental fog, shifting his focus. The boy, blissfully unaware of the tumult swirling in his father's mind, waltzed into the kitchen, his arms overflowing with mud-stained treasures from the backyard. A few stones, a broken toy, and an old tin can. "Look what I found, Dad!" Jake exclaimed, his smile sparking something in Mark's chest. Hope. Innocence. An untainted future. Mark realized he had a choice. To disclose the complexities of their past, or to protect Jake's innocence for a while longer, allowing his son to bask in the freedom of unburdened discovery. "Pretty cool, buddy," he smiled, ruffling Jake's hair. The simplicity of the moment was a buoy in the tempest of his thoughts. But just as swiftly, tension returned. What if what I discover now shatters his view of who we are? Determined to proactively address this spiraling conflict, Mark decided he needed to gather more information. Claire's findings weren't enough. They were only the spark igniting a burgeoning fire. He grabbed his phone, the familiar weight of it feeling like a conduit to a past he needed to understand more deeply. Maybe there are more answers, he pondered. He needed to visit his mother. She was always the reservoir of family lore, rich with details that could add context to the chaos. As he steered Jake toward the car, prepared for a day of family dialogue, determination coursed through him. The drive felt interminable, each mile prompting a new wave of questions. How had his great-grandfather managed to orchestrate such a duplicity? What made him choose one family over the other? Mark felt a flicker of anger. Did Anna know the truth all along? Or was the world breaking under the weight of secrets sweetly kept? Arriving at his mother's small weathered home, Mark braced for the conversation ahead. As they stepped inside, dusty afternoon light cascaded into the living room, casting a glow over family portraits, each one an echo from the past, whispering untold stories. "Mom," he called out, faltering slightly as she emerged. Her expression fell, noting the solemnity etched on his features. "I need to talk about the family. The history," he started, swallowed hard, unsure of where to lead. "Why now?" she asked, a hint of apprehension pooling in her eyes. "I know about the letters," he replied, taking a step forward, courage burgeoning within him. "And I need to understand what they mean for us." The room turned thick with tension, the air punctured only by his breathing. Her expression darkened, and for a moment, Mark feared she would retreat into silence. But as he looked into her eyes, those familiar pools of secrets and sorrow, he caught sight of something more. A flicker of acknowledgement, perhaps the first step toward the truth. Just as he was about to press forward, a sudden, unexpected sound broke the moment. The doorbell rang, jarring the air thick with anticipation. Who could that be? His mother whispered, stealing a glance at the clock. Before Mark could voice a warning, an unsettling sense of urgency washed over him. Who was at the door? Was it someone from the past, or worse, someone bearing another secret that could further unravel the fragile tapestry of their family history? He steadied himself, gripping the edge of the table, poised to confront whatever awaited them on the other side of the door. The moment, to reveal or to conceal, to embrace or to flee, hung precariously on the threshold of revelation. Mark stood frozen for a moment. The sound of the doorbell pulsed through the heavy air, demanding attention. His heart raced, uncertainty clawing at him. His instinct pushed him to dismiss it as a distraction, yet a sharp voice inside urged him to confront whatever lay beyond the door. "Stay here," he murmured to Jake, keeping his eyes locked on his mother, searching her face for guidance. She wore a mask of worry that matched his own. But what could she say? They both needed answers. Drawing a deep breath, Mark moved towards the door, each step echoing with a mix of hope and dread. Questions ricocheted in his mind. Who was at the door? Were they another link in the twisted chain of his family history? His fingers brushed the doorknob, and he paused, filled with conflicting emotions. The letters and their implications had already shaken his sense of self. What more could this person possibly bring? With a firm resolve, he turned the knob, the creak of the door matching the grinding of his thoughts. Standing on the threshold was a stranger. A woman with a weary face, her worn coat suggesting long travels, or perhaps a life lived on the outskirts. Her eyes were piercing, as if she had known him long before he had known himself. Anxiety gripped him. "Can I help you?" he managed to ask, trying to mask his tension. "I'm looking for Mark," she stated simply, a hesitant but determined glint in her eyes. "Mark Anderson? Yes, that's me," he replied, instinctively stepping back to allow her in, though every part of him bristled with uncertainty. Jake peeked around him, curiosity piqued at the unfamiliar figure. The woman stepped inside, her presence filling the room, amplifying the already thick sense of anticipation. "I know this is strange," she continued, glancing at Mark's mother, who appeared both intrigued and distressed. "But I have important news regarding your family." The pause before her next words was weighted with potential. Mark felt time slow, each heartbeat a drumroll urging him to confront yet another mystery. "I'm Anna's daughter," she said, the revelation hitting Mark like a tidal wave. For a brief, dizzying moment, he struggled to maintain his composure. The implications of her claim were enormous. If true, she carried with her truths about the very foundation of his identity. "Hannah?" he echoed, testing the name on his tongue. The specter of his great-grandfather's choices loomed larger, shadows darkening the already complex narrative of his family. "Yes," she nodded solemnly. "I came here to find you because of the letters. What do you know about them?" His voice broke, betraying the fear churning within. The determination to seek answers collided with the overwhelming urge to protect himself and Jake from whatever storm this encounter might unleash. "I know about the legacy your great-grandfather left," she replied, her brow furrowed with concern. "And I think it's critical we talk about it. I have pieces of it that may alter your understanding of everything you thought you knew." Mark's mind raced, weighing potential ramifications. Could this stranger be a key to understanding the deep fissures running through his family history? Or was she another embodiment of the secrets best left buried? He stole a glance at Jake, who watched with a mixture of confusion and fascination. The child deserved to hear the truth, but Mark understood that truth came with its own burdens. It wasn't just about choices. The woman pressed, sensing his hesitation. It was about survival. And I believe there's more to your story than you could ever imagine. Mark's heart quickened, tension coiling tighter. The stakes had escalated. The potential for discovery, absent before, was now blindingly clear. This woman could unravel decades of deception, igniting the struggle between revealing painful truths and preserving the fragile peace of his son's world. Regardless of the path he chose, Mark knew now he had no choice but to confront the new branch of his family tree. What revelations awaited him? How would his next choices shape not only his life, but that of Jake's future? As the moment settled heavy in the air, Mark felt the weight of destiny press upon him. An urgency to uncover buried secrets tethered to the woman standing before him. The labyrinth of his family history beckoned, and he found himself drawn in, teetering on the edge of a revelation that promised to change them forever. Mark stood in his kitchen, still reeling from the whirlwind of events that had unfolded with Anna's daughter. The knowledge that he was now entangled in a family history laced with complexities loomed over him, fostering both excitement and fear. He blinked against the sunlight streaming through the window, recalling the promise he made to Jake to anchor their journey in honesty and transparency. He glanced at his son, who sat near the table, idly playing with his toy. Jake's innocent murmurings wafted through the air charmfully, a stark contrast to the storm inside Mark's heart. Today was the day he would choose to confront their family legacy. It was not merely an obligation but an opportunity to reshape their narrative. "Jake," Mark began, his voice steady yet warm. "There's something important I want to share with you." The gravity of his words hung in the air, capturing his son's attention. Jake looked up, curiosity sparking in his young eyes. "Is it about Anna?" he asked, the name rolling off his tongue with the innocence of a child, unaware of the shadows that lingered behind the truth. "Yes," Mark replied, feeling a surge of determination course through him. "It's about our family. I think it's time you learned about the past and how it connects to who we are." As he spoke, Mark felt the tension shift into a purposeful resolve. Today, he would navigate their story, ensuring that Jake understood the intricate fabric of their lineage, and perhaps even lay the groundwork for a bond fortified by the truth. Gathering his thoughts, he recalled Claire's revelations and the woman's visit. He imagined leading Jake through the mosaic of their ancestry. "Our family is special, but it's also complicated. We come from people who made choices that shaped our lives. And sometimes, those choices led to secrets." Jake's brows knitted together in confusion, but there was also a flicker of understanding. "Why couldn't they just tell us? Sometimes things are hidden out of fear. Fear of hurt, of judgment, or of change. But it's important we understand where we come from," Mark explained, feeling the gravity of his words settle into the air. He took a breath, feeling the weight of the responsibility he now bore, not only to protect Jake's innocence, but to equip him with the resilience needed to handle the weight of revelations. This journey isn't just about looking back. It's about realizing we can take what we learn and use it to build a better future. Jake considered this for a moment, his innocent mind working at the threads of his father's wisdom. "So, we can learn from them?" "Exactly," Mark affirmed, pride swelling in his chest. "We can learn from their mistakes and explore what it means for us. We can choose to honor their stories, and those who came before us, while also making our own choices." "Like being honest?" Jake's voice was clear, and Mark noted the brilliant insight gleaming in his son's eyes. "Yes, just like that," Mark said. "By being honest with ourselves and each other, we can rewrite our family narrative based on values we choose. We get to curate our path forward, even if the past can be messy." Mark could feel the weight of his past experiences colliding with the current moment. He wasn't just guiding Jake. He was forging a new path for himself, one defined by courage and clarity. He recognized this conversation as a rite of passage, an opportunity to shift from mere survival to genuine fulfillment as a father. "Want to see what I found on my treasure hunt?" Jake interrupted, suddenly beaming. He dashed toward the old box filled with childhood trinkets and uncovered a small, beautifully crafted stone. "This represents our adventure." Mark lifted the stone, sunlight catching the unique contours that molded its surface. "Just like our story. It's not perfect, but it's ours." Jake nodded, smiling brightly. And for a moment, Mark could see the beginning of a legacy taking shape. They would honor the complexity of their family, weaving both the light and the dark into a fabric that would sustain them moving forward. The call to reclaim their history was now palpable. "We'll start small. Maybe write down what we learn about Anna and anyone else connected to her. We can build a family tree, piece it together. The possibility of transparency invigorated Mark, lighting a fire within him to confront the forthcoming revelations. Not just to uncover the history that shaped their lives, but to empower Jake with a clear story filled with rich lessons and moral integrity. As they embarked on this path of rediscovery, an urgent sense of purpose washed over him. It was a path sprinkled with newfound clarity, where understanding would flourish in the shared intimacy of these conversations. "Are you ready to begin?" Mark asked, crouching beside Jake, curiosity brimming in both their eyes. "Let's go," Jake exclaimed, his voice echoing with excitement. They gathered their materials and set out for the local library, a promised treasure trove of information. Mark felt invigorated as adrenaline surged through him. This step, taking ownership of their heritage, was his chance to reshape the narrative and demonstrate to Jake that strength didn't stem from ignoring the past, but rather embracing it with courage and compassion. Walking side by side with his son, Mark glanced ahead, envisioning a landscape rich with insight and a sense of belonging. The journey had already led them to a deeper appreciation of their story, but the real adventure was yet to come. As they entered the library, ready to delve into the complexities of their family, Mark felt a profound transformation within himself. He was ready to face the truths, navigate the shadows, and emerge into the light. More than just a father, but a guide forging a path for both himself and his son. The return to their roots would no longer be a burden. It would be a celebration of who they truly were. In this moment, Mark knew they were set to achieve not only knowledge, a passport to the past, but also a strengthened bond that would solidify their legacy going forward. The time had arrived to embrace the realities of their family history, and he was determined to ensure that this adventure would illuminate the way forward for generations to come. Now was the moment of action, and the journey toward understanding was just beginning. Be part of this extraordinary journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. It truly makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait. Even one more second to take action. This is the moment to engage and be part of transformative personal stories.